So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about value, because the thing is, when it comes to lead generation, the thing that attracts people into your quote-unquote funnel is the value that you're putting out into the world. And something that switched for me back in 2017 is I made the choice to start making daily videos on YouTube. And when I started doing that, the key that switched everything is I started focusing on making videos that added value to people that were consuming the content. And after about a couple weeks of doing that, what happened is something started to switch in my identity. After I committed to that new way of being, of making the daily videos. And then what started to happen is I was putting that value out into the world, and then that's what people on the other side of it are thinking. They're thinking, what's in it for me? When they're like, my girlfriend, for example, her mom was a world-renowned reporter back in the day, like back in the 90s. And I was talking to her recently, and she was telling me like the thing, she was involved with like the investigative journalist for like the Timothy McVeigh stuff and like some big client, like big level things. And one of the things that she said was that the thing you want to think of is WIFM, what's in it for me? So you want to think that's what's going through you guys' minds right now. Even as I'm talking right now, I can feel it's like, how does this shit apply to myself? And what I'm thinking is like, okay, well, the switch that made everything for me was when I committed to that identity. I made videos every single day to the point to where 2 or 3 weeks into it, it was easy to make videos. It was only hard because it was unnatural. It was unfamiliar for a period of time. The more I did it, the more I wired in that identity, and then the easier it became. It got to the point where other YouTubers, as I started to grow, would literally ask me like, how are you making videos every single day on YouTube? And I was like, it's easy. It's not hard at all, because it was a part of my identity. It's how I saw myself. Every one of us has an inner self-image for the way that we see ourselves, and we have an ego preservation mechanism inside of us that's doing everything it can to keep us stuck where we are. And the thing that we want to start asking ourselves is, how can I add more value out into the world? When we ask ourselves that question, we can then see, because there's a deeper layer to this as well, where eventually, as I've been on this journey, I've realized that the value I put out into the world isn't just my sense of identity. There's a level that you get deeper when you let go of some of the self-worthiness stuff, where you realize you're worthy for just being you. The most authentic part of yourselves, when you're in your most like vulnerable states and you're really expressing yourself authentically, what you'll find is that people respond to you very differently. And then the energy that comes out of it is very different, because in the beginning of being on YouTube, I wanted to add value to people, but the other side of it was there was a side effect of it where I wanted validation. So if I look to my older videos on YouTube, when I was making content, I can see the desperate sense of validation that I wanted, because I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to prove it to my dad. I wanted to prove it to my friends, that for a long time, where like I go to parties and stuff or see them and they'd be like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm still making videos on YouTube before I blew up. And I could just see it kind of like glaze in their eyes, you know, like, oh, that hobby, you know? And it was like this thing for a long time, but then eventually I committed to that identity, and then I was being it naturally. And the funny thing was, then I didn't have to prove myself at all. But what I really had to do is get to the core of my own self-worthiness stuff, my own abandonment issues and shit like that. That was something that really changed a lot for me, is realizing that. So when we're talking about, and it's true what Owen says as well about people being qualified and like kind of bought in. You know, I do these things called like 21-day challenges online, and when I do them, it's funny because I've done them free and I've done them paid. When I do them paid, it was like cheap, $67. I'd have like sometimes 4,000 or 5,000 people that would buy the $67 one. And then I did it for free and I had 8,000 people buy. I had on the paid one, I had 1,500 people show up live for 21 days in a row. On the free one, I had like 800 people show up live, and there was double the amount of leads for that. So there is something to be said when it comes to buy-in, and the thing that you really want to focus on is what energy are you putting out there. When I was working my 9-to-5 job as well, even with the kind of woman that I was dating, I became aware that when I was working a 9-to-5 job that I hated, I always attract women that were also working 9-to-5 jobs they hated. Interesting, right? That's how it worked. And then I started doing what I love, and then I was only dating women that did what they love. Because you being yourself, the value you put out into the world, you're attracting an equal reflection of what that is, because your standards raise. When my standard raised, not that I'm judging people that have a 9-to-5 job or anything, but it's like my values are different. When we talk about value, there's value you add out into the world, and then there's values that make up your sense of identity. You want to think about that too. Because back in the day, I valued self-validation. I valued things that were out of alignment with my true self, that I was put at the top of my value system. Like when you go to a Tony Robbins event, A Date with Destiny, he spends the whole thing is about like getting you to become aware of your identity values and then rearranging them and letting some of them go. And at first when I read his book about that, I was like, oh, I don't get it, I didn't understand it. But once I started looking at identity, I started realizing that there's certain virtues every single one of us live by. These virtues are a lot of times subconscious that stemmed from childhood trauma. At a certain time in your past, you guys may have been 4 or 5 years old, maybe your parents divorced. And then you made a decision in that moment that, oh, maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe my parents divorced because I wasn't good enough. Maybe if I would have done something different. And we make all these meanings that then go on autopilot. Okay, I'm gonna get, in order to feel safe in my own body, I need to get validation. I need to get people's approval. I need to get all these things so that I can feel safe. And then we start living by that compass for a long period of time until we become aware of this. So most of the transformation for me has been based in one word. That word is awareness. Once you become aware of the stories that you're living in, that's when really you can start to change your life. Every one of us has a story. When I was working that 9-to-5 job in 2017, my story was that I work a 9-to-5 job I don't like and I feel kind of trapped. I had corporate politics. I had managers that were like super narcissistic and I just did what I was told. I had to like suck up to get the schedule I wanted. I would go to work every day and it was slow, so I'd complain to the other coworkers about how slow it was, and that was the reality I was agreeing to. But what I had to do is I had to become aware that this is a reality that I'm agreeing to. And my reality, my inner thoughts, feelings and actions are in complete alignment with this 9-to-5 job that I hate. That was the awareness. And 90% of all transformation is awareness, because once you become aware of something you were priorly unaware of, that's when you can change it. You can't change something if you're not aware of it. So when you're looking at these different things, whether it's looking at like, increasing your dating life or getting a girlfriend or whatever it is, realize that everything on the outside is a direct reflection of the inside. So what you want to instead really focus on is the value you're putting out into the world and the values you're living by. Some values that I switched is I was living, validation was at the top of it. I wanted people's validation. I wanted people's approval. I found myself like in people's frame, kind of morphing myself. I had a poor sense of boundaries. And that was all because that was a mechanism that I used to counteract my childhood trauma because I didn't feel safe.
Really listen to that last piece that he's saying there. That's the key to what you're all messing up.
When you think of your frame as even right now as you guys are sitting here, put the awareness inside your guys' body. Put the energy inside of your feet, in your hands. Put your energy inwards. Because as you do that, you actually bring the energy back to yourself. I did this, I went to this life transformation place in Costa Rica, and there was this teacher there, and she's like an energy, some type of like, she had a TED Talk and stuff like that, but she did this thing where she's like, I want everyone in the crowd right now to send me energy, project energy at me. And she said that when people would do that, it would make her like, she could feel it and it would repel her. But she said, okay, now bring the energy inside of your bodies. Feel it on the inside. Feel in your own frame. And as they would do that, it would magnetize her towards the crowd. Because there's an energetic component to this. Most people, I have a theory about empaths and people that like have a weak frame. What happened is early on in childhood, there was some type of trauma that happened. And when that trauma happened, we didn't feel safe inside of our bodies. So what many of us did is we moved into our heads. Then what happened is in order to find safety, we're looking to the outside, and we're trying to find safety in our environment. So we're tuning ourselves to the people in our life. We're tuning ourselves to people we're trying to date. We're tuning ourselves to our family, our friends, and then we feel fucking lost. Because it's like, we feel like we're who the fuck am I? I'm like changing for everybody. And a game changer for me was becoming aware of this. Like I said, 90% of all transformation is awareness. When you become aware of this pattern, you can then see that really what this is, it's a mechanism that we're using to move the energy into our heads, because then in our heads we can try to figure everything out, but then we're in our fucking heads. So the key is bringing the energy inside of our own bodies and feeling safe in our own frame, and then realizing, who the fuck am I? What are my values? The value that we feel inside of our own bodies, the energy that we feel inside our own bodies, when we do this, I have a shadow work integration coach I've been working with. He's like pretty expensive to work with. Because I pay him money, I really listen to what he has to say, you know what I mean? Which is what Owen was talking about earlier. But he does this, a lot of this is energy work, where you bring the energy into your body and then you walk around Whole Foods or wherever the fuck you guys shop, and watch how people respond to you differently when you're centered inside your own body. And you don't need shit from anybody else. Because an empath or a people pleaser, they're manipulative. A people pleaser or an empath is trying to manipulate their environment to get their own needs met. It's needy energy, it's unattractive, and it's what repels people. So instead of needing someone else's validation, needing someone to like tell you what to do, the energy changes when you go within yourself and you start leading in your life and you start asking yourself, what values do I live by? What do I want to do? A game changer for me, about a year ago, I was going through shedding this whole nice guy persona. My dad was a nice guy. I had a narcissistic ex-stepmom growing up from 7 to 15 years old. Super like almost like having a military sergeant as like a stepmom. My brother and I had no freedom. My dad was a nice guy. He attracted that. And growing up, I would keep attracting women into my life that were trying to control me. The reason was because subconsciously, that felt safe. I attracted an ex-girlfriend right when I finally had freedom. My first girlfriend was like 18, 19 years old. I was in a relationship for 4 years. She was jealous, controlling, always had to know where I was. And there's something about that felt safe to me at the time. I broke up with her. Within 2 weeks, I was working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. I worked in women's shoes for 10 years before I went full-time on YouTube. 2 weeks after breaking up with this girl, I got transferred to a better shoe department. I went from BP shoes, which is like the cheaper shoes in Nordstrom's, to salon shoes, like designer shoes. Better commission spot to be in. The manager of that department, like that was my manager for 2 or 3 years, was exactly like my stepmom. Exactly. Narcissistic, demanding, would talk down to, she'd make people cry. She was just super controlling, but she was protected by upper management. She was in my life up until about a year and a half later. I went through a spiritual awakening. I started to become aware of these different energies and stuff, and I forgave my ex-stepmom. I had to forgive my ex-stepmom, and I had to become aware of how much I was tuning to everyone else to get safety. And as I became aware of this stuff, it really quickly brushed out of my life. So fast forward a little bit more, I started getting better with this energy. Up until about a year ago, I learned how to really start tuning into myself and not needing anything from anyone else, not needing anything from a girlfriend, not needing anything from people in my life, not needing validation. And what this really came all down to is an abandonment issue. Many of us in childhood felt either emotionally or physically abandoned by our parents. It's one of the main core wounds that many of us have. It may not be where your dad or your mom left. Maybe it was. Maybe they passed away. And you don't know, there's these questions we ask of why. Maybe one of your siblings got more attention than you did. Maybe it was they just emotionally didn't give a fuck. Whatever it was, in that moment, what we do is we decide, we carry a level of shame, and we say, there's something wrong with me. I am broken. I am not accepted. And then what happens is we go out into the world, and we're navigating based on that same original agreement that we made when we were that age. So the key to the transformation for me was realizing that even though I was trying to get people's approval and I was looking for it on the outside, what I ended up doing is I was abandoning myself. I had abandoned myself to find frame in everybody else. And what really changed it was when I got back to my own sense and I stopped abandoning myself. And stop abandoning yourself is about coming into your own frame. It's about asking yourself, what do I want to do? What is exciting for me? Are you leading in your life? What virtues do you live by? And if you're living by the virtues like I was of like an inauthenticity and like wanting validation and approval, if you're people pleasing and all this shit, become aware of that. Realize it may have stemmed from childhood trauma, but then reorder your own values. And as I started to do that, I started to value over everything, I value authenticity and vulnerability. And vulnerability means the ability to put yourself out there. The word vulner actually means wound. Ability is to go into the wound. Your willingness to show your vulnerability, even when we're talking about being the nice guy, being a nice guy, it's very easy to get put in the friend zone because it's safe. The challenge is that when you're in the friend zone, there's no sexual polarity, there's no energy that's attracting you. And what I had to learn is I had to learn how to be in my own frame, in my own energy, and actually put it out there and express myself to people of what I was feeling. I would literally, when I was the nice guy, I would literally be like dating. I could look back and I could see how I'd be like dating someone, and it was like they just thought I wasn't interested in them because I was playing it so fucking safe. You know, and I look back now and I made that choice. That's when I started switching things. It was about a year ago. And what I did is when I met my girlfriend, she came over to my house. She came to Sedona, which is where I was living. And when she came over, I made the choice that I'm going to lead from the beginning. And that's what I did. And I was leading from the very beginning, and there still is strong sexual polarity. She's able to feel safe. I'm able to lead. And it's not in like a narcissistic way. I'm able to just be safe in my own frame, which allows the feminine to then feel safe. When you change your identity, these things become natural and normal for you. It's no longer on a pedestal. It's only when you first start doing something that's gonna feel a little bit like, oh, it's just bullshit. But it's not that it's bullshit, it's just that it's unfamiliar. So the key to this whole game is becoming aware of these stories, becoming aware of these values that you might be living by, and even aware of the childhood wounds that you may have. The childhood wounds of abandonment. That's one of the ones I see. Maybe it's also just my audience because like I share my story and you tend to attract what you put out. So I get a lot of people in my audience that are like empaths, that feel other people's energy, that have trouble finding frame. But it all boils down to the one core wound of feeling abandoned when you're a kid. And then changing yourself to get the validation of other people. And realizing also that the nice guy tendency, which is just a manipulative tactic to get people to like you, which in fact, you know, it actually does the opposite. There's an Alan Watts philosophy called the backwards law. Have you guys heard of it? Yeah, the backwards law pretty much states that like, you know, these things have the opposite effect. The more you try to control things, the more out of control you will feel. The more you want people to like you, the more you're gonna have fucked up energy and the less they're actually gonna like you. But if you don't give a shit, like Owen's a fucking master at this. Like when he came over to my house the other day, he met my friend Matt, and he's so himself, and he just doesn't give a shit. And it's so inspiring because it's like he's just so in his own frame. You know what I mean?
I'm also trying to give you guys a great night of entertainment and some of that.
But see, he's trying to add value.
Yeah, I want.
You know what I mean?
I can tell you guys,
fun is value.
Yeah,
you know?
You guys are cracking up, so I'm just trying.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
A lot of very off the wall stories.
Yeah.
A lot of war stories.
It's the detail, like when he was telling the bear story earlier. You know, it's just so out there. It's like the guy's a character. You know what I mean? But in general, with everything, there's like one thing that you leave with today from what I say, because I'm going to dip here in a minute. It's just that vulnerability is really all of your guys' superpowers, because if you have the ability to be vulnerable with somebody, it takes vulnerability to go and approach someone. It takes vulnerability to say to someone, you know, I have feelings for you, I like you, and to show that through your actions. It takes vulnerability because you could get rejected. The thing to remember is you're not a kid anymore, and you don't have to worry about that same level of rejection. But even if they did reject you, you don't have to internalize it the way you did when you were 5 years old. So it's about becoming aware of these patterns and then making a choice about who you are now and then embodying that energy, making a choice. I made a choice in 2017, being a full-time YouTuber. I just took on that identity, and I didn't do it only until it worked. I made that identity shift and said, this is who I am now. I took that identity with me, and the funny thing is as I made videos every single day for weeks, I started to feel and give myself more permission to express myself. I started to feel more natural. People started to resonate with more, because remember, people feel what you feel. So if you start making videos or whatever you start doing and you feel kind of cringy in the beginning, it's okay. It's a part of the process. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get, and then on the 10th or 15th video, they're gonna feel that energy, and that's gonna change. So realize that the energy, the value you put out is what you are getting back, and the way that lead generation comes to, even in the beginning, like Evan Pagan said, like move the free line. It's like I made videos every single day on YouTube for 3 or 4 years till I went down to like 3 to 5 a week. Now I'm making 5 a week instead of seven videos a week. But there's so much free videos out there that sometimes people don't even know I sell shit. You know, that's how much value's been put out in what I do. And it's cool to me, because when I go out and, you know, it's the same thing. People, like, they recognize me for my videos or whatever. I can tell there's value that they've received, and it's a really good feeling. Before, it was a good feeling because it was also like, you know, great, they're recognizing me and stuff like that. But now I'm at a place to where it's like, it's whatever. I don't need it anymore, because I have confronted the childhood wounding of the approval seeking, the people pleasing, the abandonment issues. And I've started to embody my own frame by being in my own body, leading in my own life, and being vulnerable. And you'll find that the more vulnerable you are and the more you accept your own vulnerability, the more other people will then accept you. So it does take courage to have vulnerability. So realize that. It will take courage for you to put yourself out there, to show someone how you really feel. To your friends, I mean, I went through a phase to where I became like a boundary ninja, to where I realized that there was so much shit I would say yes to that I didn't really want to do, that all of a sudden people would be hitting me up to do shit. I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. No explanation, by the way. If somebody's doing something and you don't want to do it, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to go into why. I found myself sometimes explaining myself to people, like explaining why and stuff like that, but that's like more the worthiness wound. Eventually, I got really easy for me to set boundaries, and the more successful you become, the more boundaries you will have to set. There's something else that Owen is talking about, like the awareness of somebody else. Sometimes I do events or I meet people, and there's almost a lack of awareness there of what my life is like. Not that I need people to know, who I am and what I do, but like they'll be like, hey, let's exchange numbers and hang out. Like I'd love to share my story with you and stuff like that. But there's a complete lack of awareness of my own energy and just how busy I am with like running a YouTube channel and stuff like that, so.
Or what a win would be for you.
Or what a win would be for me. I had this guy, his name's Christian. He reached out to me 2 years ago.
The perfect timing on the phone. Just teasing that.
There's a friend of mine that he reached out to me, and he was just a YouTube subscriber, and he was telling me to get on TikTok. This is 2 years, a year and a half ago. He's like, get on TikTok. And I was like, I don't really give a shit about TikTok. I just want to be on at YouTube, and that's my main focus. He's like, no, man, I've grown to 300,000 on TikTok in a month. And he's in the same niche as me. He said, you know what I'll do? I will make your TikTok videos and send them to you. And what I ended up doing is hiring him to make some of my TikTok videos. My TikTok, I don't really focus on it, but I grew to 100,000 TikTok followers in 3 weeks. He added value. I flew him out to my house, hung out with him, had a good time with him, and now he works with me and my buddy we have something where we teach people how to go full-time doing what they love. He helps me and coaches those people because he now makes 5 to 10K a month coaching people. So you want to think of not that you're tuning your own energy to like everybody else, but you're in your own frame, but you're also aware of what other people's frame is like. Because otherwise you'll end up in weird situations and stuff like that. So.
And the operative word being win-win.
Yeah.
You're in your frame, but you can also find a way to connect to somebody else's frame and create synergy, and both of you win.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's something to definitely become aware of, and to just know that what you put out is what you get back. My buddy Victor and I, we did this workshops. We did a 3-day challenge for showing people how to go full-time doing what they love. And one thing we did is the last week, it was a free challenge. The last week we were pretty much live selling. We were selling into our coaching program and shit. And we had different themes for each day. So one of the themes titles was a workshop on coaching for coaches, showing coaches how to be coaches and make money and convert clients. That was one of the titles. Another titles was for social media secrets, right? So I got up and shared social media secrets and shit like that. The interesting thing was the people that were coaches were much higher conversion rate, because they want to know, they're coaches who are already coaches, who already have money, who want to learn on how to be better coaches and convert clients. We converted an insane number of those people into being coaching clients. The social media secrets one didn't do as much at all because the program wasn't a fit, because these are people that just kind of want to be on YouTube. They want the notoriety. They want to grow their social media following, but they're not coaches who have money to invest in a program. So the energy you put out, and even Owen and I both know, you have a lead magnet, right? A lead magnet is something you put out for free that then gets people on they're on your email list. And based on the lead magnet you have is the kind of people you attract. Just in the same way that the YouTube videos I make, they attract different client audiences depending on the title. If I make an esoteric starseed video or something that's really esoteric and out there, it attracts that kind of person. If I make a video that's more grounded in power versus force content or something like that, that's much more practical, it attracts way more grounded people. So it's something to be mindful of, but the thing that I'd like for all of you to look at within yourselves is, what energy am I embodying? Because whatever energy I'm embodying is being projected out, and I'm attracting an equal reflection to that. So you want to start asking yourself that question, and don't then focus on changing your energy to then attract something else on the outside that you actually want. Find out and really tap in, let go of the old stories, and just as cliche as it sounds, focus on being yourself. Being yourself in the way you're doing. What are you passionate about? What are the values you live by? What are the meanings you choose to give to things? Because everything in life has zero built-in meaning other than the meaning we give it. That's why our childhood stories are still on autopilot, because it was meaning we gave when we were fucking 2 to 3 years old, to 5 years old, to 8 years old, or whatever, and it's meaning that's then been on autopilot. So start questioning this shit. Start questioning, what are these meanings I gave to when I was 5 years old and this happened? What was the meaning I gave when this girl broke up with me? And a lot of times you'll find that the meaning that you gave to the girl that broke up with you was probably the same meaning you gave to your mom when she fucking rejected you. It's an interesting thing. But a lot of your guys, if you guys are having relationship issues or dating issues, look at your relationship with your parents. And also look at your parents' relationship. What were the challenges they had? I see my dad's a nice guy, like empath, nice guy, people pleaser. He attracted a narcissist. I then was attracting narcissists. Why is that? To find out that my dad's dad was the same fucking way. He couldn't say no. I talked to my grandma about it. Just asked her, and it was very interesting when you talk to, if you guys if your guys' parents are still alive, talk to your parents and ask them about your childhood. Ask them about them. Like, start asking them questions. You'll find out a lot about your own shadow, because we tend to harbor the same energy and the same meaning they had. They tend to pass it on to us if we're unaware. There's ancestral stuff sometimes too, stuff that's run down the bloodline for like many generations. So awareness. Awareness. Let's all say awareness right now. Awareness. Awareness. Remember that, because 90% of all transformation is awareness. That's it. You could say the other 10% is the choice you make about who you are now. It's the choice you make from the new meaning you choose to give shit. And when you make that new meaning, you can then embody it. You can give yourself permission. Reality is just reflecting back to us who we are being. You know? And you might think to yourself, I'm not credible. I'm a perfectionist. A lot of times being a perfectionist comes from a childhood trauma of feeling like you have to be perfect, feeling like it was never good enough, being criticized when you're a kid. You know, you look into your childhood, you'll find some very interesting things. Procrastination, another self-sabotage, ego preservation mechanism just to keep us where we are. These are all, you become aware of how your ego is working. Your ego is like your imaginary self. We all have these imaginary selves we imagine ourselves to be. And as you become aware of these, you can then let go of what's no longer serving you. You can then break out of it and step into the unknown, which is where all magic happens. I decided to make videos in 2017, got into the unknown, then it became familiar to me. Now I'm in the state to where this weekend I have my first like actual live event. I've done retreats and shit. Do my first live event. That's my own version of like a shift into this new reality, this new version of me. You know? Even when I was like, you know, I was chilling with some of my team. We were just chilling and we're, you know, getting ready for the event, and we were just hanging out. And I'm like, oh, Owen. I found out that Owen. He texted my buddy. He was like, oh, I have another event tonight. You know, we're gonna be making videos and shit like that. And I'm like, you know, it was really easy for me just to say, no, you know, I got this event coming up because preserve my energy and shit. But I just thought, like, I want to get a taste. I just want to fucking get up here and start being in that identity.
Yeah, this is a great warm up for you, actually. By the way, one of my good buddies, here, let me grab the speech. I want us to be saying some very powerful point. One of my good buddies, Elliot Hulse, he is one of the best of all time in front of a camera doing videos on social media. And Aaron is also one of the best of all time doing videos in front of a camera on social media. And so I watch Elliot do all these like crazy videos. And I remember in Orlando, I invited him to come to sit in on an event that I was doing. And I was really hoping he'd come up because I knew he was gonna just smoke it. You know, I knew he was gonna come up and he's gonna be so good. And he came up and he delivered like one of the all-time greatest speeches I had ever seen. It was like such a great speech. And I don't know if you guys remember Elliot like punching, you know, pounding his chest, and he was going all crazy and, you know, all this kind of stuff. It was truly epic, right? And it's funny because Aaron, it's like, it's impossible to believe, much like it was with Elliot, that Aaron is not, you know, super duper familiar with being in front of crowds. He's mostly familiar with doing videos. And when you see him now in front of a crowd, he's one of the best speakers that you'll ever see on the entire planet, literally. And I'm a 2-decade studied speaker, and if you look at his speaking, it's just ridiculous. So I'm having like a very nostalgic memory of like seeing Elliot, you know, pop up here. We popped his cherry a little bit. Now we popped Aaron's cherry, right? No, but it's like just seeing how skilled you are. You can see that, yeah, if you keep doing this, I mean, you're already there now, and if you keep doing big events, I think you're going to get addicted to it, and I think you're going to be just known as one of the preeminent speakers on the planet. I mean, if you just keep doing it, it's going to be awesome. Give me a hand, guys. I mean, this is like really,
Thank you.
Awesome.